Welcome to Courts This Week. This is Sanya from LiveLaw with important court updates of the week from the legal lens, of course. Only facts and the law, nothing else. On that note, let's go over updates from the Supreme Court of India first. Farmers' protests can continue without impediment and breach of peace by protesters and police, Supreme Court said, as it refrained from passing any substantive directions in the PIL seeking removal of farmers' protests. The court also reiterated its suggestion to constitute a committee to facilitate talks between the protesting farmers and the central government in order to resolve the disputes over farm laws. Indeed, the right to protest is part of a fundamental right and can be, as a matter of fact, be exercised subject to public order. There can be certainly no impediment in the exercise of such rights as long as it is non-violent and does not result in damage to the life and properties of other citizens and is in accordance with the law, said the bench led by Chief Justice of India S.A. Bobde. The bench also directed service of notice on farmers' unions, indicating that another bench could consider the matter during vacations. Supreme Court issued contempt notices to comic artist Rachita Taneja and comedian Kunal Kamra. Both petitions against Kamra and Taneja were filed separately and by separate individuals, but were both taken up on the same day by a 3-judge bench led by Justice Ashok Bhushan. The Attorney General for India had earlier granted consent to initiate contempt proceedings against both the alleged contemners. While the basis of the initiation of contempt against Kamra relate to his tweets against Chief Justice of India as well as the Supreme Court, contempt against comic illustrator Rachita Taneja is related to her illustrations against Supreme Court of India, alleging it to be hand in glove with the ruling party. Top Court refused to interfere with Allahabad High Court's order dropping NSA charges against Dr. Kafil Khan. It seems to be a good order by High Court. We see no reason to interfere with the High Court order, CJI S.A. Bobde remarked, while refusing to interfere with the order. He, however, clarified that the observations in the High Court order shall not affect the prosecution on the criminal cases. He said the criminal cases will be decided on their own merits. The observations in a preventive detention judgment cannot impact criminal prosecution, he said. The UP government had moved the top court, stating that in the impugned order, the Allahabad High Court had substituted its subjective satisfaction in place of the view of the authorities. Khan was arrested on charges under the National Securities Act from Mumbai over a speech he gave at Aligarh Muslim University against the CAA last year. Supreme Court has agreed to examine whether probing constitutionality of Declaration of 1975 emergency is feasible after 45 years. Court said that it shall look into whether a simpliciter declaration in this regard can be declared. This issue came up after a 94-year-old woman moved Supreme Court seeking that the proclamation of the emergency of 1975 be declared unconstitutional and for a compensation to the tune of Rs 25 crores from the authorities who have participated in the same. Senior advocate Harish Salve appeared for the woman, arguing that the abuse of power during emergency was so enormous that it had scarred our country forever. Your lordships must declare that the emergency proclamation was wrong, argued the senior counsel. Siddiqui Kappan not a terrorist. He has links with banned organizations, Students Islamic Movement of India and PFI. UP government submitted before the Supreme Court. The government has further claimed that Kappan and all other co-accused were heading towards Hathras in a pre-planned manner to execute unlawful activities and to disrupt the public peace of the state by provoking the class and caste conflicts within the state. Kappan was then arrested by the UP police on October 5 for alleged criminal conspiracy in wake of the particular incident. Following his arrest, the Kerala Union of Working Journalists filed a habeas corpus petition in the Supreme Court challenging Kappan's custody. summary eviction procedure under Senior Citizens Act cannot be invoked to defeat right of a residence of woman in a shared household as per Domestic Violence Act, Supreme Court has held. The top court has stated that the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act has no overriding effect over the right of residence of a woman in a shared household within the meaning of the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. A woman who was the daughter-in-law of a senior citizen couple had contended before the top court that she could not have been evicted from her shared household in view of the protection provided under Section 17 of the DV Act. This happened after the senior citizen couple filed an application under the provisions of the Senior Citizens Act seeking eviction of their daughter-in-law and granddaughter from a residential house, which was first allowed by the Assistant Commissioner and then upheld by the Karnataka High Court. Courts cannot alter presidential orders on scheduled tribes. Supreme Court said while reversing a Bombay High Court judgment declaring Gond Govari as scheduled tribe. The power to specify tribal communities or tribes as scheduled tribes under the Constitution is vested with the President as per Article 342(1), and courts cannot assume jurisdiction to determine whether the terms of the presidential order includes a particular community, the Supreme Court held, thereby setting aside a Bombay High Court judgment which had determined the question of whether Gond Govari was a scheduled tribe, answering it in the affirmative. Selective leaks during investigation to media affect rights of accused and victims, Supreme Court said. The bench headed by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud observed that thus, while cancelling anticipatory bail granted to in-laws of a deceased woman in a dowry death case, the court has also directed the Central Bureau of Investigation to further look into the case. High courts and other courts now. Allahabad High Court has stayed arrest of man booked under UP Ordinance against religious conversion for marriage. This ordinance is the recently promulgated Prohibition of Unlawful Conversion of Religion Ordinance 2020. The bench was hearing a criminal writ petition filed by Nadeem, who was booked by the UP police on November 29, 2 days after the ordinance was promulgated. Right to progeny and termination is a fundamental right under Article 21, Orissa High Court held, while permitting a rape victim to terminate her pregnancy after 20 weeks of gestation. Reliance was placed on Meera Santosh Pal versus Union of India, where the Supreme Court held that women's right to make reproductive choice is also a dimension of personal liberty, as understood under Article 21 of the Constitution. The Delhi High Court has held that allegations of sexual harassment by complainant are not diminished due to pendency of disciplinary proceedings against her. The bench held that even if she has been subjected to penalties, so long as there is nothing to show that the officer who imposed the punishment has been targeted by her by filing a complaint of sexual harassment against him, such punishments or proceedings cannot have any bearing on the inquiry into the sexual harassment complaint. Notably, the division bench made some notable observations on gender conditioning that continue to thrive in our society, stating that it leads the men to abuse, ill-treat or become violent towards women and transgenders, often treating them disparagingly and with condescension. It is impossible not to notice all around us how easily the common woman is put down by the common man. Less said the better of what happens to the third genders, said the bench. Kerala High Court has recently raised permissible number of daily pilgrims at Sabarimala Temple to 5,000 with effect from December 2020. A division bench comprising Justices T.T. Ravikumar and K. Haripal passed the directions on a batch of writ petitions which challenged the various restrictions imposed by the state government and the Travancore Devasom board with respect to the pilgrimage at the Lord Ayyappa temple at Sabarimala amid the COVID-19 situation. rape marriage promise can't be called inducement when sexual activity continues to happen over indefinite period of time, Delhi High Court has held, while dismissing the appeal filed by a woman against trial court's judgment after an inordinate delay of 640 days against an acquittal order, wide offences punishable under section 417 and 376 of the Indian Penal Code. A Delhi court took cognizance against Sharjeel Imam for sedition, hurting religious sentiments, and criminal intimidation on Saturday. Imam was arrested over alleged inflammatory and instigatory speeches against CAA and NRC. Multiple FIRs for sedition were filed against him in Assam, Delhi, UP, and Manipur, alleging that his speeches amounted to sedition, following which UAPA was also invoked against him, alleging his involvement in the Northeast Delhi riots. Well, that's all for this week. If you found this information helpful, requesting you to like and share this video. Please also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next week. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss a video from LiveLaw.